Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Her Faith Inspires podcast, where we take cultural issues and we always come at them from a biblical worldview. And I have a major cultural issue to talk to you about today, which is inspiring and also scary and intimidating. I think it's all of the above, just because as a parent, you never want to find yourself in the situation that Harrison has found himself in. And I want to go ahead and read you a little bit about him before I have him come on and tell you his story. Harrison Tinsely never thought he'd be on the front lines of the battle for parental rights, but this is personal. He goes around the country telling his own story about the fight for his son. He has found a calling to fight parental rights and children's innocence. Harrison has been on fire in the podcast realm, seen on The Blaze, Daily Wire, and TPUSA. His story will touch your heart and fill you with fire to be courageous. He spends all of his custody with his son. Harrison, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming on to tell your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, what's funny about it is that I actually listen to Ali Stuckey's podcast like all the time. And I heard you on her show. So then I looked you up and I'm like, I'm just going to reach out and see if he'd be willing to come and talk to my audience about this. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. So I appreciate you. Like, you are everywhere. I saw you on a Charlie Kirk reel like last week or this week. I can't even remember where, or when that was, but you are getting around for your story.
I was super blessed to meet Charlie Kirk. That was kind of a dream come true, but really I just say yes to every interview I get because I really want to spread the message as much as possible to protect kids.
Yes.
It's
So
the most important issue.
it is, especially right now. And we're talking about like a foundational truth here. We're talking about biological reality. When it comes to science, our culture is quick to say that we have to trust the science, but when it comes to biology, for some reason, they don't say the same thing. So before we get into all that, because people are probably like, wait, what? If they haven't heard from you or about you, they might be wondering why we're discussing the scientific part of reality here. But can you tell us your story and how you even got to be the face of on all of these different podcasts as a guest?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts a few years ago. I was going to visit my parents in the Bay Area and I stopped somewhere to sing because I'm a singer and I love singing. And I met this beautiful girl. We both sang each other's songs. We ended up falling in love and dating. And she had so many absolutely wonderful qualities. And shortly into her pregnancy, she got pregnant. And we were both super happy about that, which was wonderful. And so, it was the first time I've ever had that situation. And me and her were so happy, coming up with names and all that sorts of stuff. And we came up with the name Sawyer. I remember we had been coming up with names for, like a month or so. And one day she was like, "Oh, I think I found the name." And we had known it was a boy at that point, and we were both stoked about that, believe it or not. And yeah, when she told me Sawyer, I just like felt it. I knew that was the name, and we both agreed. So that was a really cool thing we agreed on. And me and my son's mom never agreed politically. I always thought that we could get past that. I think our country's just become so polarized that that's really hard nowadays, unfortunately. And so as her pregnancy went on, she became hostile towards me. I was constantly getting threatened that I wouldn't see my son if this or that, if I wasn't exactly who she wanted me to be, if I didn't go to therapy with her, all these things. It ended up that she broke up with me and sent me a cease and desist letter asking not to communicate with her. So then the pregnancy went on and I didn't know when my son was born. I remembered the due date, of course. I ended up finding out a week after he was born from someone on social media, and that was really sad to hear and see. You see this picture of a baby, and it's like part of you, and you're just not there for him. But I figured out what to do. I filed in court 2 months later in San Francisco court, and it took 13 more months, unfortunately, tragically, just to meet my son. So I finally met Sawyer when he was 15 months old, in spite of fighting in court and knowing the entire time. And that was really, really hard. But those 15 months made me stronger man to be a better dad for Sawyer. And they also made me appreciate the time that I get with him, because now I make sure, as you said, to spend all my time with him. I'm not working when I have him. I'm just present in reality, in real life with him,
Mhm.
which is really, really wonderful. And I see so many people that don't have that these days. I think we need more of it. I think that's what kids crave, what they need to become strong, healthy, you know, adults and bigger kids.
Yes,
So
absolutely. So when did your how did you're seeing him? First of all, was that difficult for him to like bond with you after that long of not knowing you or seeing you? And how is that relationship now, out of curiosity?
we're right now we're the closest parent kid combo you'd ever see in your life.
Oh,
It's
nice.
really, really special. I'm so lucky. But back then, that was one of the things they acted, at least, that they were worried about. So the court, actually, my first visits with Sawyer were supervised, not professionally, but supervised by someone that his mom chose. It was actually, even though they were incredible moments and memories meeting him, the supervisors made it very uncomfortable. It was like you constantly have someone watching you, taking notes of everything you do, trying to find if you're doing something wrong. It was a really uncomfortable thing. There was a
Mhm.
time once I would always bring my mom or sister with me so that I'd have a witness, so that nothing could be made up about me, because I was worried about things like that, because those sorts of lies had come out about me in court. And I remember one time we were at this hotel in South San Francisco, and we left the hotel to go for a walk with Sawyer. It was her dad, me, my mom and sister. Her dad waited back right when we got outside, like stopped at a bench to smoke a cigarette. So we walked forward with Sawyer. He just like led us, I guess. And we went up, I don't know, quarter mile, stopped somewhere where there was kind of some stuff to climb and jump off of for Sawyer. And I was focused on that. My sister told me, like, oh, he's watching us from the bushes. And so my sister got pictures of that and everything. But just to give you an example, like he was hiding in bushes watching us to, I guess, try to see if I would do something wrong. So it was just a hard thing to have at first, but thankfully that was only for 2 months. And then after that, I just started spending time with Sawyer alone for the weekend. And then I moved to the Bay Area and was awarded custody pretty quickly, half custody of him, which I'm super
Oh,
thankful for.
yeah, that's great, especially in California. I came from California 2 years ago and moved across the country, so I know that things are more difficult in California, and especially because they just passed a bill within the last couple months saying that if you do not affirm your child's gender, their preferred gender with their pronouns and things, that you can have your kid taken away from you. But now you're thrust into this legal battle where basically it's not your kid that's saying, I want to be a girl. You're fighting the biological mother who is having this argument or some sort of dilemma with you, trying to not only get custody of your son, but now isn't there like a gender battle with her?
Oh, yeah. So the story goes on. So I win half custody. It's unbelievable. I was so happy. Remember that day. Actually, right when that happened, as well as just generally the time following it, there was extreme defamation and harassment of me, um, because that upset my son's mom, I believe. And there was that. Then that was right around the time I at least I observed and was shown that she started putting him in dresses and calling him a they, them, putting him in makeup, things like that, you know, showing him drag queens on TV. And there was also an incident where my son's mom was arrested a couple months after I was awarded half custody, for child endangerment, and placed on a 5150 hold. And that was all while Sawyer was with her. And I actually ended up getting granted a restraining order because of that defamation and harassment of me was so severe. That was violated. So that all of those things, along with a bunch of other stuff, I brought to court to try to win full custody or majority custody of Sawyer. And I was awarded a 5-day trial, which is super thankful for. That's a really long time in family court. Most people don't get that. And so we ended up having the trial. It's 5 whole days. And, we had loads of evidence, witnesses. It really seemed like everything was going all our way. It was really one-sided. I was so confident, that at least something would give in a positive light. But a couple months later, after the trial, the court rendered their decision and decided that they would keep custody at 50-50, that they would not rule on gender, and that my son had to continue to see the doctor that the mom preferred. I should mention too, there was things I showed, like when she was first pregnant, we had conversations just one-on-one where she would ask me hypotheticals like, oh, what if our kid's transgender? There was a post she posted on Facebook where she said, I think it was the first time she announced she was pregnant, baby Sawyer due in December. I'll love you whether you're a boy or girl or neither.
Mhm.
So I was, trying to show the court, like, my son's not, that's not how he feels. He says he's a boy adamantly. He always has. Nowadays, even more so. He just over and over will tell you he's a boy. He loves being a boy. He wants to be big, strong. Boy, he wants to be Hulk and Spider-Man, and he loves hockey and football and just everything that's just so boyish and wonderful. And I think it's so sad that you wouldn't want your kid to be happy with who they are, and especially like, I mean, I swear he's like just a boy's boy, like more than most of his friends even. It's like such a beautiful thing when you see that. I just don't understand how you wouldn't want that for your kid.
So
Yeah, and if
were you concerned at all, like or did it raise any red flags, like when she's just saying, I'll love you, whether you're a boy or a girl, or did you just kind of like, oh, she's, maybe she's just saying that, or were you starting to have concerns at that point? Or were you guys together still, like when she was posting that?
we were together when she posted that.
Okay.
So I was concerned, obviously. Um, when we would have discussions about that sort of thing, normally, at least from my point of view, uh, yeah, from my point of view, I would be pretty rational and calm, and she would seemingly end up having a breakdown or something like that every time.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes this can be like, and this is all anecdotal, observational and things, but I think a lot of parents, they exploit their kids. I've seen them on Instagram and different social media platforms where they're posting these videos and, what do you want to be? Are you a boy? And they're asking their little girl that. And it's almost like they're coaching them into, agreeing to this delusion of the parents. But it's almost like the parents get attention. It's like Munchausen by proxy without the actual illness. It's like you want the kid to have this gender. They're not saying it's gender dysphoria, but you want them because it's going to bring attention to your life in some way. Do you think that was her motivation, or do you even have any idea of why she's doing this to your child?
Well, I've seen the videos you mentioned, and they're absolutely heartbreaking. And I think it's so sad that you would use your kid as a pawn to get something like social media likes or whatever clout that you're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
We need to let kids be who they are. We don't need to push ideology onto them. It's not appropriate. They're not old enough to consent to any of that stuff. And as far as my particular situation goes, I can't speak for her.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know if she really believes in these ideas or not. It could be something to hurt me. It could just be for social media clout or victimhood hierarchy status.
Yeah.
I really hope though that she'll see the light soon, because the idea is, right, if I'm not mistaken, is that we should let the kids choose. That's
Yeah.
at least how they frame their idea, right? So if we grant that premise, it's a premise that I absolutely disagree with. But if we just play it for a hypothetical experiment,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the premise that the kid should choose, my son's chosen. He adamantly says he's a boy. If you give him a girly toy, he'll actually yell and scream at you, "I'm not a girl, I'm a boy." That things like that happen, like, I don't know, every few weeks. He has lots of girl cousins and stuff, and it's honestly sad. I'm
Right.
glad he stands up for himself. His girl cousins are just having fun with him, and I think it's sad that it's like gotten to a point where he's hearing these conflicting ideas, and it's causing him anger.
Yeah, for sure. So does she ever send him to you with female clothing, like girls' clothing, or does she know like not to do that because of what, you're going through with the legal battles?
That's a great question. She's never given him to me in girls' clothing, and there's been girl diapers on him before,
Mm,
for sure. But that's about the extent of that. I've never seen the clothing.
okay. Yeah. Wow. It's funny though, you say that you guys had these conflicting political, stances. But even more than that, those are ideological, right? A lot of times, like how people vote, it's the policies mostly, or hopefully I say it's hopefully policies that you're looking at that person represents when they're coming to the podium to say, I'm the best candidate. So it's more than just Republican and Democrat that got together to have a baby. It's these two different ideological views, and in some sense that can equate to a worldview, that if those two worldviews are clashing, then you're going to have this war and you're going to butt heads through it. So my question to you would be is like, do you see, like, if somebody's dating, or there's a younger couple that are like, man, we really want to date, would you advise them against like checking into seeing, hey, what do we believe? What do we ideologically oppose from each other's stances here? And would that create a problem going forward, no matter how quote unquote in love you may think you are?
Right. It's an excellent question. I do advise people to make sure your values and worldviews align if you're getting serious with someone in any way. I think it's extremely important. I know that there's cases where people don't agree that much and that it's worked out. I think those are usually older couples. When the country is a little less polarized, I think some of the views are becoming so radical that it's becoming a lot harder. And, the social media and the news are constantly telling us to basically to hate each other. And it's really sad. And we actually don't need to do that. And it's interesting. You brought up, the bill in California. It's AB 957. I've gone to the Capitol and spoke on it, and I've been fighting it. There's some people at the Capitol today fighting it. It hasn't actually passed yet. It's likely to pass, but it has to pass the Senate floor. And then Gavin Newsom needs to sign it.
Which he'll
And
do.
well, it's a terrible bill.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've spoken to the author of the bill. She was actually very kind and respectful. I
Mm.
spoke to her for 7 or 8 minutes, and I've spoken to a lot of the different senators that support it. And I've tried to get them to amend it or get rid of it or express just why so many parents are, against it. I was there that day they voted on it in committee, which is the day that parents and people can just come in and they have to hear everyone. So if you just walk up and you say, my name's Harrison Tinsely, I oppose 957. That's it. It's a really short thing. And hundreds of people lined up, hundreds of people called in, which they have to listen to for a period of time. And I try telling them, like, you saw how many parents were against it. So many people walked right up, Shanda, and were like, I'm a leftist progressive Democrat from San Francisco and I oppose this bill. And so many, that some of these things aren't even a right or left issue. It's just like we can all come together on things like protecting kids, and that parents have more rights than legislators.
Absolutely. So you're young. You're a young dad, right? Which,
Yeah.
good for you for being a dad fighting for your kid today in today's culture. I think men in general get a bad rap. I'm a mom of 3 boys and have a great husband. And so
It's
for me,
amazing.
I'm like, yeah, I advocate for the strong man. And I think that for what you're doing is leading the way for a lot of other men to say, okay, well, that's what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be like, you're the first line of defense for your little boy.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure, but I'd love for you to even expand on it more. I'm pretty sure that you never thought you would be doing all of this stuff. I mean, if you probably, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but being a singer, if somebody was going to say, hey, one day you're going to be on all of these people's shows and you're going to be telling your story, but they didn't tell you the specifics, you might have thought, oh yeah, it's probably going to have to do with my music or something that I'm chasing after. And in reality, life has kind of led you to this point where you're going down a path you probably never thought you would go down. I mean, did you ever think you'd be speaking to these things like you are?
Life's so unpredictable. I sing songs and I work blue collar, just construction. I build houses and decks and plumbing, just normal stuff. I would have never imagined myself here, but I feel ready for this moment. I feel that I have a strong sense of purpose and meaning to fight for kids, and that I am courageous, and I do have an important voice to
Mhm.
make sure that we keep kids safe and actually save our country and create the future we want for our kids. We can have it if more of us are brave enough to speak of it. If everybody would just tell the truth about what they believe, we could change so much. So many people are just living in fear, and that's not a way to live. That's not being free. If you're free, you can say what you believe truly.
Yeah. And you're doing it in California, in the Bay Area, nonetheless. I mean, you're talking about one of the most liberal places and progressive places in the United States. Um, and the Bay Area is a beautiful place, but I mean, with all those political ideologies, they're ruining it at the moment. Um, so I know you didn't ever see yourself going down this path. Do you ever get intimidated by, or like, do you hear the opposing view a lot because you're so outspoken? Like, do people message you and say, "Hey, you need to like, you bigot," and all the normal things that, we get called if we're not clapping along with culture? Does that intimidate you? Like, how do you handle that?
Well, firstly, even in the Bay Area, I have not yet met a parent, meet lots of parents at the park, etc., that agrees with any of this. Everybody's against it, right or left.
Mm.
I haven't seen. I'm in San Jose, not San Francisco.
Okay. Okay.
It's a little more sane, but even still, I mean, even San Francisco recalled their DA and their school board, and I think normal people, regardless of any political party, are not about this. As far as hate mail goes, I've gotten a little bit. It's extremely small, and I've gotten just an overwhelming, unbelievable amount of love and support and prayers. So much so it it's it's hard for me to even comprehend. And I feel that I feel a duty, of course, to be the best dad I can be and fight for my son, but I also feel a duty now to all these people who believe in me and support me. And I'm not going to let my son down, and I'm not going to let any of you down.
That's good. Yeah, that's awesome. And I hope that you continue to feel that support and get that support. And you do need our prayers because this is a big issue. But I love that you say that a lot of people out there are still holding on to. I mean, I was saying this the other day on another podcast. Male and female are the bottom of like their foundational truths. If you chip away at that, you really have nothing left and society is going to crumble. And it's we're holding the line on the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, that means we let all of these other things erode to the point where now we're debating biological reality, which is really sad. But at the same time, it's people like you and other people who are saying, "Hey, I'll stand here regardless of if I take the hits or not, I'll take them because I have a duty to my child and a duty to the truth, regardless of, what people say." So it takes courage to do that, but we all need to be doing that, and we all need to be supporting people like you, which we're going to talk about how to do that at the end. Um, One of the things I also talk about, I think when you look at society and the culture, when you're watching the news and you have these like school board meetings where parents are coming and they're voicing their concern over these books that are available in the libraries, right? And parents are frustrated and they're getting upset because you can take your kid to school now and they won't even tell you if they're trying to identify as the opposite sex. All these things, they're trying to remove the parent from being that first line of defense. There's a reason for that. But also statistically, parents are losing their influence with their children because if what they say to believe and tell their kids to live for is not lived for by the parents as well, the parents lose their influence because the kids are saying, and this is more along the lines of maybe a middle schooler to high schooler, But if the kids are saying, you're telling me what to believe, but you don't even believe it yourself, I can go find consistency with the world who's saying, yeah, you can be whatever you
Mm.
want, and we will help you get there. We'll help you transition. Now, what the kid doesn't know is they won't help them pick up the pieces, because that's not going to work. No one's there hearing these, kids who are transitioning surgically and medically when they're saying, hey, this didn't work and I'm unhappy. So the point is, there's a reason why they're trying to remove the parents. What do you say is the importance, why it's so important for parents to be that first line of defense for their own kids?
Well, being a parent is the most important, meaningful thing you can do in your life. I love being a dad literally more than anything. It's absolutely incredible. Love it more than music. I love it more than sports. Anything I thought was cool, being a dad is cooler. So I would recommend to anyone, if you have that possibility, to definitely try to make that happen. And I think it all comes down to, of course, they're trying to separate families. That's a classic totalitarian way to weaken people and make them easier to control. Strong families make strong people. They're harder to control. And I think the main thing that's the easiest solution is to just like we talked about earlier, to spend more time with your kids. The more time you spend with them, the more they're going to believe in you, the more they're going to respect you, the more they're going to love you and trust you. And what's been happening is well, think about it. They take kids younger and younger now to start preschool and everything. They start them at like 2 years old, and they just have parents spending less and less and less time with their kids. And I think this is all downstream from that. I do see, intentions being bad. And as far as the male and female thing, I think that's the most beautiful, distinguishable thing of difference between humans. And it's so wonderful. And we can't live in lies anymore. We've tried doing it in the name of compassion, and it's gone too far. We tried that. It clearly is not working. It's causing too much damage. And I don't know how you could see detransitioners like Chloe Cole, who's absolutely incredible person and so brave, and not be heartbroken and not at least question the fact that we're doing this to children.
Yes, absolutely. So if parents, I don't know if any parent out there is like never heard of, these people's stories or stories like them, or know what the culture. I mean, this is such a, like you said, there's everyone you're running into is like, hey, we don't agree with this. But the person with a microphone is the one who speaks the loudest. And we have all of these voices with these large platforms who are saying, oh no, we need to respect these people. There's no difference between male and female. If parents are like, what do I do? Because I think a lot of parents are a little bit concerned, especially if they're having to send their kids to public school. How do parents educate themselves? What can they do? You said you've been to the Capitol, and sometimes it's as simple as saying one thing into the mic: I oppose, or I agree, or whatever the wording is for when you're advocating
Yeah.
for a bill or not advocating for a bill. But what can they practically do? Because when we look at the president, that's on such a high level that really the change takes place at the local levels. It's really within our own cities and our own city politicians and things like that. But can you give them advice on how to get educated, where to go, what to do, and make their voice heard? Because we do need to be the louder voice in the culture.
We do need to be, you can either start by just speaking up. You tell the truth in your life, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's on social media. That's the first step, is just saying what you truly believe, which will free you a lot. And from there, you can find things to do, whether it's go to the Capitol and oppose bills, speak to senators, lobby them, so to speak, about bills. You can go run for school board or just show up to your school board. You can see how much incredible local stuff has been happening. So some school boards in Southern California have made it that passed policies forcing schools to tell parents about the transgender thing. As you mentioned, a lot of schools will hide it from the parents now, which is absolutely unacceptable, and we should not put up with it. And that's why school boards have been stepping up, but we need a lot more of them. So if more of us ran for school board, talk to the school board members, we could, have common sense ideas like telling kids the truth, or parents the truth about their kids, and banning pornography from schools.
Yeah. And you're right too. Just starts with the simple truth telling. A lot of times I was telling one of my boys the other day, sometimes we think these big, huge gestures, and really, if you can't be faithful in the little things, the big things are so far off, they're unreachable. But if you start off small, just by telling your neighbor the truth or speaking the truth with people like the teachers and other people in your community, it's going to embolden you to continue down that line and look at you where, where you are speaking the truth. And I think that that's a testament to how it starts off with simplicity, and then it goes bigger and snowballs from there. But if you're not faithful with the small things, you won't be faithful with the big things. So where are you right now? Like, what are you doing? What are you involved in? What's the next step for you with your son and this legal battle? Or is it over for now and this is just a 50-50 thing?
So now I'm appealing the court's decision from the trial to keep custody 50-50. That's actually starting very soon. It's a long process. I've never done it before, but I feel good about it. I think I have at least a chance to get some of this overturned by the higher court. I go to the Capitol and fight bills. I speak up as much as I can. I'm involved with some groups like Dad Army, Our Duty, Freedom Angels, and they're all just, I've met so many incredible people since I've started this journey, and it's wonderful. And I think if anybody starts to take some action, you'll end up meeting some incredible people as well.
Yeah. Do you still have a lot of other people contacting you for interviews and things like that as they hear your story?
Yeah, it seems like I get more and more nowadays.
Yeah, I bet. That's great, Harrison. I honestly am very proud of you for doing that. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? Like, are you in your 20s still?
I look like I'm a little younger than I am,
Yeah.
thankfully. I'm 31.
Okay. Well, you're still young. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still young. But yeah, I mean, if you look younger than you are, always embrace that. But no, you are young, and that's great. You're, like I said, I'm really proud that you've taken this bold step to do what you're doing. We need more parents that are, that are willing to advocate for their kids. And in doing so, you're actually advocating for all other parents in the same situation as you, or even kids who are so young, they cannot make these decisions for themselves. I mean, it's absurd to me if you don't give a kid a license to drive till they're 16, can't legally drink till they're 21, can't vote till they're 18, but you want to allow them to choose something like, hormone blockers and things like that when they're 10. Logically, it doesn't make sense. And there's a reason why it doesn't make sense, because it's not in line with the truth. It's not in line with reality. And the only ones that are going to suffer for it are the kids. It's the kids. I'm hopeful that one day people are going to look back on this and be like, oh, this was really stupid of us. Like, look at all these poor kids that went through these transition surgeries and hormone blockers, and look what we did to them. However, that could take who knows how long before all of these kids today, realize that, oh my gosh, I made a mistake here. But if you're locking them into this world of, not being able to hit puberty and going through the natural cycles that their bodies are going to go through, because you stop that at 10, it's still going to ruin their lives and not allow them to become mothers and fathers. Like, you love being a father, I love being a mom. We're ruining that for them.
Yeah, I really liked your points there. They're fantastic. I mean, it's so crazy to pretend that kids can not consent for anything except this one instance, even though this one instance is the craziest, most cruel choice of them all. I mean, it's sterilizing children, it's mutilating them, it's ruining their futures.
Yeah.
You would never listen to your kid if they're like, oh, like my son loves Spider-Man. He, I would never take him into New York on the high buildings and be like, okay, jump off and swing. If your
Right.
kid says they're a pirate, you don't cut off their leg and poke their eye out.
Mhm.
But for some reason, if they say they're transgender, people are literally in 2023 cutting off healthy body parts off of children.
Yeah.
It's demented, it's diabolical, and we absolutely need to put a stop to it. I think we need to start holding parents and doctors accountable. And I mean, it's one of the greatest evils we've faced, and I feel confident that we will stop it and that history will look back upon us. And it's, you're kind of, everybody has a choice right now. You're going to be looked back as the people that went along with the evil. You're
Yeah.
going to look like, you watch Star Wars, you watch Lord of the Rings, you read the Bible, you're not on the side of the good guys,
Hmm.
even if you think you are, if you're going along with this. But
Absolutely.
if you have courage, you be brave, and you say what the truth, and that we need to stop this, you can be remembered as part of the people that drew a line in the sand and said, you're not hurting the kids anymore. It's done.
Yes. How do your parents, like, in your family, are they very supportive of you as well?
Yeah, my family's all very supportive of me and my cause.
That's awesome. So I have another question for you. What is your besides the love for your son, why are you also so passionate about this being the truth? Like, what is that conviction that you have of saying this is wrong, so I'm not going to allow this to happen? Like, what is that motivating factor for you?
I think in life, you see things, you experience things, you feel things. And this is something I know deep down in my heart, in my soul, that is not the right thing. And I know that kids are the most wonderful, precious things amongst us, and they're the future. We need to protect them at all costs. I know that God created only man and woman. I know that, people can make mistakes and be confused.
Mhm.
And I think we should always have compassion for people, but it gets to a point where sometimes it's more compassionate to tell somebody the truth as opposed to go along with a lie, even if that's hard.
Yeah, and you know what else? We're talking about you wouldn't take your son on a tall building because he says, "Oh, I'm Spider-Man." Yeah, yeah, jump off. It's so true because kids who are saying, kids, you remember what it's like to be a teenager. It's tough
Yeah.
years. It's confusing. A lot of times you're like, should I go with the jock group and dress like a jock and join all the sports? Should I go with the cheerleader group and be all preppy and prissy and dress like a cheerleader? Should I go with you look at the goth group and dress in black and put on this black eyeliner? You're trying to figure out, where do I fit? Where do I belong? And a lot of that has to do with identifying with certain groups of people. And this is just a whole nother level of an identity crisis, because they see these reels and these people getting applauded for going through these transitions, and they want to feel important. They want that purpose. And if you say to a kid, if a kid comes to you and says, I am a girl, trapped in a boy's body, and you say, oh, okay, let's go ahead and help you reach that goal, you're actually confirming that something is wrong with them. You're not saying, hey, this is how God made you. You're perfect the way that you are. Let's walk through this together and walk along this path of becoming comfortable in your own skin and who God created you to be and the purpose that he has for you in this life that he gave you, rather than saying, yeah, you're right, let's go start hormone blockers and just completely transition this kid and change their name and everything. I mean, a lot of these people who are transitioning, they go to the point of changing their name, which is such an identity thing. Our parents gave us a name when we're born. And when you learn, I think there was somebody who said the greatest sound to somebody is the sound of their own name. So when you want to change your name, you must completely hate the identity that you have to be able to want to change that and go through that process and change your name completely. I don't know, and maybe you do, Harrison, because you've been around us in this realm a little bit longer and meeting a whole bunch of different people. I don't know that anybody goes through that transition process and doesn't change their name as well, as if that's going
It's
to change their identity.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on the name thing. I didn't put so much thought into just the name. I know there's a bill in California where they're trying to make it that kids can change their name and then they seal it off so no one can see their original name and stuff. But
Yeah, dead
yeah, I mean,
naming and things, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's getting crazy. But as far as, puberty goes, it's an uncomfortable time for everybody.
yeah,
And I think it's just taking advantage of kids when they're most vulnerable. And if the majority of kids will grow out of feeling gender confused if they just go through normal puberty.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, it's just sick that we're putting up with this and that it's happening to children.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like you with your son, he's just like, I want to be a boy, dad. This is who I am. I love being a boy. He probably doesn't even say I want to be a boy. He is a boy, and he's just
Yeah.
thankful being who he is. And I know what it's like to have those rambunctious little boys where you're like, yep, he's all boy. And it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And it's so cool to cheer them on and to have those little boy energies, running through your house. My question is, like, you look confident. And you should be. I mean, I think when you have the truth and you know the truth and you stand for the truth, there's a confidence in that. It's an anchor, right? Like when I said, what motivates you? And you're like, it's the truth. And God made us male and female. It's just the truth. That's an anchor. That's the foundation that we stand on. But it doesn't mean that you don't get, like you said, I was just asking you about what are the things that you're afraid of. Well, he goes back, you have 50% custody, which means half the time he's with you and half the time he's with her. I'm sure there's got to be a point, because I'm a mom, when your kids are with you, you're like, okay, everything's right in the world. And then when they go
Yeah.
out, you're like, what are they doing? What are they hearing? How are they, are they okay? And I'm sure that when you're not on a podcast and you're not speaking the truth, you still have to be home by yourself wrestling with those doubts and fears. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
It is. Sometimes I have sleepless nights, and I worry, I have anxiety, sadness. It's tough sometimes, but I believe in Sawyer, and I do believe that my half custody with him and me making sure I spend all that time with him is enough to guide him
Mhm.
and anchor him in the truth.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say too, because I was saying before that parents are losing their influence because their lives are not mirroring what they say. But your life is, in the sense that you're getting up and you're standing up for him and for the truth. And then he can see, which he's young. So I don't know that he's actually connecting that. My dad lives what he says, but one day he will. And it starts now. I'm like, you don't just say, oh, don't worry about it. My kid doesn't get it. He's only a toddler. I'll start making that important when he's 12. Again, we just talked about, if you can't speak the truth in the small things in your everyday conversations with people in your own life, you will never do it in front of people when you're getting tons of viewers like you have been on these other podcast platforms. You're not going to save it for the big stage if you can't do it in the small things. And that goes with parents saying, I'm going to be consistent when they're young and from the ground up. So that way, when they're 12, they can look back and say, yeah, my parents have matched. They've always lived what they preached to me. They've always lived the things that they've encouraged me to do. And I think that that's what kids are going to see. If Sawyer understands biological reality, he can see also the reality of what it's like to go to dad's and hear that, yep, Sawyer, this is the way God made you. And I'm going to make sure that I encourage you to be grow into the man that you're supposed to be. Whereas he can compare that when he goes to his mom's and he's not hearing that. Kids, if they can distinguish between biological reality, they can distinguish between the reality of their environment. So hopefully that's a little bit encouraging. But my heart goes out to you because that is tough.
It can be tough at times. Sawyer looks up to me. He literally is a mini me. He wants to be me in every way. And I always lead by example. I make sure to follow through with whatever I tell him, and I always tell him the truth. And if I ever promise him, like, oh, yeah, we'll do that, I always do it. Even if it's a small thing, like you were saying, I always make sure to do that thing if I told him that. And I
Yeah.
think things like that are going to add up, and he is going to see how to be a strong man.
Yes. I agree with you on that. And that's one thing I want, like, the listener needs to understand that, yes, there's a confidence about you, but you're human and you're a dad who worries. And like you said, you struggle with anxiety. My goal as, somebody who's on the other side of this mic too, I like to tell people my struggles at times. I mean, I don't want to air out all my dirty laundry per se, but I like to be real, because just because you stand behind a microphone or a podium or whatever, and you sound confident in the moment, the confidence is the truth itself that's telling you this is the right thing to do and it's the right thing to say. But it doesn't mean I don't struggle with the what ifs when I step away from that. And I just want people who are listening to understand that you're a normal dad who worries about his kid, but regardless of the fears or the anxiety that you might struggle with, you're still going to stand behind that podium and you're still going to stand up behind the mic and speak the truth, because that's what we are all supposed to do. It's not like courage, and this boldness is something that lasts, 24/7 all the time. And that's why you can do it, whereas other people can't. We all have to be courageous, even if we're afraid to say it. So that's inspirational to me.
Courage is the most important virtue. I feel scared sometimes, could be trembling about to give a speech, but I always do it. I say I was born to be a dad. I was born for this moment. And you just do it in spite of the fear. That's what being courageous is. Everybody feels those feelings, no matter who you see and how confident they seem. They are just taking the chance and just doing it, being brave. It's the most important thing in life, is to be brave.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you going to write a book one day, or like,
I might write a book one day. I'd probably call it Be Brave.
Yeah, it's very inspirational. Or like start blogging, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's very, like, there are so many people out there who want to do, they want to speak up. They want to do the right thing. Sometimes they don't know how to do it, and sometimes they're afraid to. In reality, you didn't choose to do this. It was chosen for you, right? And what I also admire about you, and I don't think I told you this when I stopped recording, but I wanted to, is that you could have been like every other dad who not married to the woman and says, "Oh, easy out, I'm out of here," and checked out. We have a problem with fatherlessness in this country, which I don't know if you're aware of the statistics, but fatherlessness contributes to the dropout rates, the
Suicide, drug
suicide.
addiction,
Yes. Even the grades,
homelessness.
everything. Thank you. Yes, you know it. And you could have said, this is too difficult. Like, it's easy. She doesn't want me around. I could have easily have stepped aside, but
I didn't even she didn't even come after me for child support. She just tried to take the kid from me.
yeah, that to me. And then you said, no, I'm going to go after my son. And I just think that that's like, it's commendable. It's not just commendable. That's not even the right word, because it doesn't go far enough. Like, it's what has to happen. It's what we need to do. It is the responsibility we have as parents, because you're not letting your kid go. And I hope that one day Sawyer, and I know he will look back and be like, wow, my dad was not one of those statistics, which means I wasn't one of those statistics. Like, I had my dad here where a lot of kids could have, where they don't. And so, Harrison, I just hope that is something that is so important. And I hope and pray, like, I'll remember to pray for you and Sawyer, because I really think that, when you look back at Esther, and I don't know if you know the story of Esther in the Old Testament, but the whole famous line is, "For such a time as this," right? And it's like, for such a time as this. And everybody wants to put that "for such a time as this" on their wall. And it's true. Everyone's going to have their "for such a time as this" moment, meaning, am I going to rise to the occasion and do what God has purposed for me in my life in this moment? And you've already said, yes, I'm going to do that. But Esther had to say something much more important before that. She had to say, "If I perish, I perish." She knew she was going to go into the king, and he had every right to say, "You can live or you can die," because he did not summon her. And she's like, my life is on the line because he didn't ask for me. And I'm going to go in there and plead for people's lives. Some of them I don't even know, and I could lose my own. And the point is, you're never going to get your "for such a time as this" moment if you don't say, at all costs, I'm going to put myself out there. And if I lose, I lose. If I lose my life, I lose my life. But I will go down standing up for people who cannot stand up for themselves. And that's when the "for such a time as this" moment is presented to us. That's when the moment does not pass us by. That's when we're ready to face it, because we said, it doesn't matter what it costs me. The price is worth it, because the truth matters, because God has put me here for this reason. So I think that remember that. Remember that. That's where you are. This is for such a time as this, but it is an appointed time that I believe God has put you here because you can make a difference.
I'm all in. I don't care what they do to me. I don't care what they say about me. The only way you could stop me from fighting for Sawyer would be to kill me. I'm absolutely not afraid of any of that. I care about doing the right thing and protecting my son. And to your point earlier, I do believe more dads need to step up, have the courage to fight for your children. They absolutely need you. The statistics bear that out. I will also say, though, that dads do not get a fair shot in family court. And I think that that's a problem we need to work on. And I think that would really start to help a lot of families and kids if we gave dads more fair shot.
Yeah.
I don't buy the narrative that the that as many 80% or whatever are just bailing. It's just that's not what I've seen in speaking with dads now all the time. I don't see that. I'm sure there's a few, and I think that's tragic, but I think we need to get a little more fair in family court to give
Yeah.
kids a better shot.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up too, because I do think all the way around, even in culture, the way that men are presented is just not right. It's not fair. And that's why you have everyone flocking to people like Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson and all these other men. They're like, yeah, speak on our behalf, you know? So I think that it is 100% true. Most of the time, the mothers are awarded more in those court situations. So good on you again for standing up for Sawyer.
Always.
I'm thankful again that you're taking on this battle and this fight for all of the kids who don't really have the voice that we have, and thankful that these doors are being opened for you to go and tell the story. But I want to also know how we can support you and continue to cheer you on, even though we may not be right there in California with you.
You can find me on all social media at Harrison Tinsely. Feel free to reach out and send me a message or prayer. I appreciate every single one and do my best to respond. I have a Give, Send, Go to help me with attorney fees because attorneys are very expensive. And that's Give, Send, Go /Saving Sawyer. And you can, I appreciate all of you so much. And I'm never going to stop fighting for kids no matter what.
That's awesome. And Harrison, I can put all of those links in the show notes too. So for anybody who's listening, you guys can go ahead and check out where to find and follow Harrison, where to give for, because these legal fees, I'm sure are a lot and they rack up, and court is not cheap. But again, he's fighting for his son, and his voice is he's been on, like I said, Charlie Kirk, Daily Wire, the Blaze TV with Ali Stuckey, and now he's here telling us about his story too. So he needs our prayers, he needs encouragement, and if you can give financially, that would be great as well. If you have any questions for me, you can email me at hello@shandafulbright.com, and I'll catch you on the next one.